Welcome back, everybody. It's MSI 2023, and it's time for our next elimination matchup. Gen.G and BLG, one best of 5 to see who gets to go forward to play against T1 and who gets to watch the rest from home. I'm Captain Flowers, joined by Azael and Vedius. Gentlemen, I'm hoping today's series brings the same amount of heat that we got to see yesterday between China and Korea.
Yesterday, I was surprised by JDG's measured and controlled gameplay when they went up against T1. Because when we saw them play against BLG, it was fighting, 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 fighting. And BLG is the type of team that around objectives, they do not want to concede that space. So let's see if Gen.G can go toe-to-toe with the LPL powerhouse that is BLG.
Going to be really interesting to see what the first draft is here. We were just talking about this, and I do feel for BLG, it's such a priority to get a strong team fighting top, a carry for Bin, and to also, really mitigate the strength of Doran, potentially taking away something like the Gragas, I think could be big. I think picks for Bin that are going to be really important are things like the Kennen as well as the Gwen. So I am interested to see, is Gen.G going to ban away the Kennen here, or potentially the Rakan, because the other one could definitely be getting picked.
Well, we see the Jinx banned away, so if Aphelios is not, then Aphelios being first pick would be my expectation. It's Jinx, Cassante, and Ahri banned out by BLG. Gen.G banning out the Annie, the Nautilus, the Lucian, but Maokai is first picked by BLG instead. Aphelios still open.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So now there is that possibility of the Aphelios being grabbed up, but that tells me that BLG are happy to play the Xayah Rakan, or potentially even something like a Zeri Lulu, both of which are available. But Xayah going to be grabbed up, so Aphelios passed up by Gen.G as well.
I mean, when we look at the picks played by Elk so far in the tournament, 6 on Aphelios, 4 on Lucian and Jinx, and 1 on Xayah. So if you expect him to play anything, it would have to be that Aphelios here based on what we've seen so far. But yes, the Xayah Rakan duo locked in for Gen.G. We know the bottom lane there, a Lulu being locked in. I'm really thinking it's Aphelios here, boys.
Yeah. But
hang on a second.
Zeri is okay. It's just going to get locked.
That's why I'm not the draft expert. We got Zeri and Lulu locked in over for BLG.
So this is a bit of a shift, but when we look at Elk's performance, especially in the playoffs, Zeri was something he had a lot of success on, something that he's very comfortable with. After seeing the Xayah Rakan, Gen.G very clearly prepared and ready for the Aphelios, and they've just said, you know what, we want something with a little bit more ability and a little bit more dueling prowess.
Yeah, we've seen a few teams actually go towards this, preferring things like the Zeri Lulu against the Xayah Rakan, having that dash on the Zeri, having that mobility, as you're saying, Betty, is to try to avoid this Rakan engage, but the Vi going to get locked in as well. So a lot of power picks up and available in this draft. Now will there be a bit more targeting towards some of these picks we were talking about, things in the top lane, the Jace, the Rumble, obviously a flex, could be mid, could be top, could be jungle. That's going to get banned out, but I'm so curious to see if Doran will have his Gragas available here later on in the draft. It would be a great pairing, especially with the dive they've already drafted. And if Kennen and Gwen are going to make it through.
Yep, lots of focus on the solo lanes here with both sides having already drafted the bottom lane duos and the junglers together. Gnar, the final ban of the draft for Gen.G, targeting Bin, looking towards that top side. Does BLG also want to continue with more top focus? You've pointed out the Gragas, absolutely a huge factor there for Doran and the entirety of Gen.G if they can get that pick online. No, the Kennen banned away instead. This is a pretty common ban against BLG themselves, but they're respecting the possibility of Gen.G pulling it out too.
Yeah, I think that right now, if you're Gen.G, you have to make the choice of whether you blind pick something safe in the top side of the map. We already talked about the Gragas, maybe that is the direction. Sign is also up and available if they just want that front line, but the beauty of the Gragas is it can be flexed as well. You can put it in both mid and top right, and so there is a lot of room for either Doran to potentially get the counter pick, or maybe they just want to make sure that Doran gets something that he's comfortable and safe on.
I mean, I think it's his best champion by far. You can go AP, you can go tank, you can do a lot of different builds, you can flex it around, as you said. So I think it's a really strong option here. Renekton would be something that we saw a lot in regional play, but not something we've seen much here. I'm much more a fan of the Gwen. The Jax is obviously Bin's signature pick, and the crowd loves it. Yeah. But I haven't really loved his Jax here at MSI. It feels like even if he can get individual leads, he's really struggling to transition those to the team fights because Jax is just not nearly as strong of a team fighter. It's not as easy to transition as some of these other top lane picks. Also, Jax is a pretty tough matchup into the Gragas. The Gragas is something that a lot of people actually like as a counter pick or an answer into the Jax in solo queues. So we'll see how Bin is going to be able to really circumvent that. because this is one where you can get poked out very, very easily. You almost always will see Comet Gragas. Jax does not have a lot of sustain, so you can kind of just utilize your passive poke and prod, and the Jax needs to play really aggressively and constantly reset the wave and get bases, or you're just going to get kind of whittled down.
Well, we do have Taliyah locked in. Final pick here in this first draft for the side of BLG. Response from Gen.G is Lissandra. Some of that point-and-click lockdown, again, always very desirable against a champion like Zeri, who is so fast. The point-and-click of Vi, the point-and-click of the Lissandra there, being able to guarantee they can lock this down. But the mobility of Taliyah on the other side, combined with the long range of the Maokai ulti, I'm looking at BLG to create these massive zones with the wall and the Nature's Grasp together to set up the fights they need.
Well, I think that BLG have not drafted anything unconventional for what we know BLG for, right? As you highlighted, there's a lot of comfort picks on their side, and I think one of the beauties of their composition is that they have a lot of range at their disposal. Zeri plus Taliyah, a lot amount of poke, like they can play at range, they can leverage the fact that they can chip away, and they have a lot of zone control, as you also highlighted, Flower. So contesting objectives, play around these neutrals is where I expect to see BLG be the most action-packed. And as we said at the start of this series, BLG versus JDG was a bloodbath. Dragons, Heralds, Barons, every single neutral BLG would look to fight for, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that against Gen.G. But they have a lot of dive threat. They have a lot of great ways to access the backline and threaten onto Elk. So the question is, can BLG keep their AD carry alive?
Well, my question for you guys is, who won the draft? Who are we giving the edge to here now that we've seen all 10 champions about to hit the Rift?
I mean, honestly, I like Gen.G's draft a lot more. I think it's just straight up. They're looking for a 5v5. I think it's very difficult to transition the Jax to that 5v5. You know, BLG have drafted something that wants to play more around side lanes. You have the Taliyah, you have the Jax, you kind of have to create pressure there, and that has not been the MSI meta. I'll be impressed if they can really make it happen. But Gen.G's comp is just so straightforward. All these forms of engage, dive onto the back line, look for 5v5s.
Let's do it. We're on to Summoner's Rift for the first time today in this best of 5. BLG on blue side, Gen.G on red. Elimination matches only from this point forward.
A lot of support for BLG. We saw that same level of support for JDG yesterday. A lot of LPL fans in the house today. Obviously, expectations coming into this series are that Gen.G are the favorites. First seed from the LCK. Doran himself said in an interview before we got into this match that he felt that Gen.G wasn't performing at the level that they were domestically. And remember that they clean swept Cloud9 in what was an incredible performance from them. Flawless macro, incredible map movements, and just clinical execution of gameplay. Whereas BLG...
Pushing the dagger.
Sorry. Execution is the key word in that sentence.
I apologize, General. I apologize.
Obliterated, devastated, demolished, crushed.
BLG did the same to G2. Okay, BLG, they made fun of G2 in the way in which that they outfought them in the fights. They were able to claw back an impressive deficit in Game 3. And while we do see some what I call elk plays, you know, reminiscent of other AD carries in the LPL, the Jackie Love, as some would call. They were still able to come out on top, and again, I think that their team fighting is something that you can't afford to underestimate, and that really has been the name of the tournament, right? The best team fighting teams are here. The top 4 are 4 of the best team fighting teams at this tournament, and I'm excited to see what they can bring out in the 5v5s.
And it's just so interesting because BLG is the only team it feels like that bucks the trend a little bit, you know, where they are doing much more of this carry top stuff. They do have more of that kind of flair, their own different style, where a lot of the other top laners have been moving towards the Scions and the Orns, and we're seeing Gragas and all these things that are more traditionally just frontline and peel and team fighting.
And the other thing I'm looking at when we're talking about this top 4 and how all these teams stack up, one of the big standouts for BLG, not in the direction they would hope for, is when everybody is evaluating these mid laners, Yagao's the one that is often perceived as lagging behind the other 3. And although he does have some clutch moments like we saw in that series against G2 where he gets the flash Ahri charm and ends up winning that game for them, he's still often not competing on that same level that the other mids are. So particularly in this series, going up against a guy like Chovy, who consistently gaps his opponents, who very rarely dies, who is constantly the X factor in his games, I'm gonna need to see Yagao really step up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's not known as the individual that necessarily takes over a game, but he's a great facilitator. And I think a pick like Taliyah really does kind of suit his style, where he can just push out mid, can look to move towards the sides. And you can see Ben getting very aggressive here, and this is how you have to play this matchup. If you do sit back at all and you allow the Gragas to dictate the pace, he just has way more sustain than you. You're going to get whittled down. You're going to get chunked out. So you have to use your HP and your mana to just hard shove the wave and to force him into these situations where you now have time to reset. So Doran is trying to obviously, well, he was setting up a little bit of a freeze. Of course, it is just going to slow push out now. But Bin, utilizes the last of his health, last of his mana to get back, and will have the option to save his TP if he wants, whereas Doran definitely going to have to TP to be able to answer this.
Obviously, full clears from both junglers. Shun making his way down bot, stacked wave, they're looking for the dive.
All right, let's see it. Remember, Maokai can drop the aggro if he needs to, but it's not even going to be the point. They engage, the dive goes out, but they don't have the damage. Shun is low, Elk is low, but he's got the first blood, and they take down Peyz. It's BLG first to strike.
Nice dive there. Peyz almost outplaying. He was dodging around, trying to keep the minions between him and Elk, trying to block a lot of those Zeri Qs, but Elk just barely had the damage to finish him off. A really aggressive play here on this bot side for BLG, and it pays off big time as it's first blood onto the Zeri. And look at the CS difference. That is multiple waves that are going to be denied. He will lose the cannon as well. He'll be able to get the rest of the range minions, but that puts Peyz way down.
Yeah, really nice setup overall from BLG. Calm, calculated. Jun skips the Scuttle Crab to make this dive happen. And let's keep our eyes on Elk in this play, because Peyz was not going down as quickly as I was expecting him to. That initial Q does miss, then the flash away, and then those minions, as you are highlighting, Azael, just getting in the way.
Yep.
Makes it so much harder for Elk to be able to finally get that execute.
He's trying to play a little bit of ring around the rosy there with the minions.
Peyz really bought a lot of time in that dive, and it almost went awry, but still, BLG walk away with a kill. They have themselves an early gold lead, and as you said, Azael, a lot of that advantage now between the two AD carries.
Well, and that's just massive for them as well. When you take in consideration, it was a cull start. First blood goes on the Zeri, like everything goes their way. They deny the wave. Yes, the minions are going to equalize a little bit as this pushes out, but there's obviously a lot more there for Elk to farm. And he is really how BLG wins games. Bin is a big star on the top lane. It is a really flashy player, but the way that they won games in the LPL was largely around Elk. He had a monstrous percentage of the team's damage, one of the highest of any teams here. So they really do depend on him in those 5v5s, and he's in a great spot to succeed.
And we've seen some of the Elk plays, signature of some of the more wild shoot from the hip type of stuff that you were talking about earlier from LPL stars in the past, Vedius. But at the same time, when this guy is zeroed in, when he's in that zone, you know how effective he can be. You know you can depend on him to win these fights. And especially with what you were talking about earlier, Azael, Yagao being a facilitator, being able to also go down there and help this guy out, get those bottom lane leads rolling. That could be huge if Elk can maintain this lead. Doran going to shove Bin back up in the top side. Meanwhile, mid, it's Chovy under pressure. Shun and Yagao finding some damage, but now things are going to turn around as Chovy applies the ulti, and Shun's in trouble with a flash follow-up coming out from Peanut. Shun down to 100 HP. He's taken out, and Chovy's the one getting him there. Gen.G find one, but now they got to be careful because Elk and On have made their way into the scrap too. Gen.G disengage and tie the game up 1-1.
Bot laners get involved in the mid lane as we see a bit of a skirmish between the junglers. A nice collapse from Gen.G, recognizing that Jun does not have flash available, and there's little that he can do to escape from this relentless crowd control that was coming out from Gen.G. Good target focus, but BLG, they're not done yet.
Yeah, Yagao rides the wall in, and Peanut's going to be the target. Remember, he already used the flash to make the play in mid, and Elk gets the punish thanks to the Weaver's wall, and those stones making it so he could not get away without stunning himself on the exit. Beautiful setup from BLG. They get the money on the carry. They invade the enemy jungle. They steal away the blue. Nice punch back after the mid lane death.
And it's that flash trade that you talked about, Flowers. Jun, the fact that he didn't have flash is what allowed Gen.G to make that initial play in mid, but BLG didn't slow down their aggression, knowing that Peanut's flash wasn't available. They punish him as well. Very impressive aggression coming out from BLG. They decide, though, that the Dragon is a step too far.
Yeah, and Elk is just getting everything here. I mean, the Dragon would have been risky as Chovy did have the push in mid, so definitely could have made the collapse very easily, but Elk gets the blue buff. He gets both the kills. He is getting paid in the early game.
So if we look at losses for Gen.G in the LCK in spring, there's two things that were usually a factor when this team would lose, and that's Peyz being behind and Peanut dying a lot. Right now, BLG has done their research, and they are checking those boxes. They set Peanut back with an early death. Peyz is behind in terms of the matchup in the bottom lane, so BLG are coming into this with a game plan, and that game plan, unfortunately, does not include taking the Drake. That goes over the way of Gen.G. Chovy also grabs a plate mid to make sure Gen.G don't fall too far behind.
And just overall good awareness there from Gen.G. Peanut. Recognizing, oh, Chovy forced the flash away, saw that Jun collapse was real, and props to Jun being very present on the map, keeping up with the Vi in terms of farm. Does, of course, have the level 6, will lose his red buff, but in exchange, he will start off the Herald. And
they know Chovy has no TP, so with Chovy actually being pushed back, he's going to cancel his base, but he can't actually come to really answer at this Herald. Elk, though, this is risky, because Alon has actually moved up towards Herald. Yeah. Elk is here on his own. You got to be hugging the bottom of this lane. You could be in trouble, potentially.
He does have the ulti available on the Zeri, immediately popping that one. The Xayah goes up into the air. Peanut and Peyz get it done. Peanut's gonna get away before that last turret shot fires off. Gen.G gets some vengeance here in the bottom lane.
Yeah, Elk tries to outplay it, but it was always gonna be Peanut who actually took aggro. I think if he focused Peanut, it's a 1-for-1. In that situation, he's trying to fire in on Peyz, who's the squishier target, but the tower is on the jungler, and I think he actually could have got the 1-for-1 if he played that just a little bit differently.
I also just have to give credit to Gen.G. They realized that they were behind in tempo, especially after securing the Drake. Peanut decided to commit to the red buff. So rather than just rotating out, acting as spectators onto the objective, they cross-map. They know that Elk has a massive shutdown. They know that the best way for them to get more gold back is to actually find this pick. And by showing Delight in mid, that gave Elk the confidence that, oh, they're actually looking to contest as a Herald, which then lowered his guard, and they were able to find a pick. So Gen.G closing the gold gap ever so slightly.
Gotta say, been doing really well in this 1v1 up on top side so far. He's gotten a plate, he's up 20 plus CS, doing very, very well in what can be a really tough matchup into the Gragas. So, you know, showing again his prowess in these 1v1s. So many top laners are incredibly complimentary of Bin's laning phase, talking about how he is the toughest top laner to actually lane against in that 1v1. And this is his signature pick, so clearly comfortable, regardless of the matchup, to pick it.
And now that he's gone ahead and done his recall, it'll be Elk marching up here into the top side. He'll catch this next wave as Bin goes bottom and Shun fires off the Maokai ultimate here. Nature's Grasp not going to hit any meaningful target. BLG do use it to, of course, take control over the top side river, so they'll grab the Scuttle Crab there. Gold's still dead even between the teams right now, so the next few actions going to be pretty important for either side to try to get an advantage.
Yeah, I think Shun is probably just going to try to drop Herald top. I mean, they swapped their bot lane up towards top. They already took a turret play off that. Shun has grabbed the Herald, so they're just going to look to continue putting more gold in the pocket of Elk here. You can see that Gen.G's trying to answer this, though. The bot lane is coming out on the minimap, walking up to try to answer that top lane push. A couple plates are going to be gone, though.
Yep, good use of the Zeri zap as well there from Elk to hit Doran through the turret, make sure that they interrupt that back teleport, now being used by the big man in the top lane for Gen.G to get him down to the bottom side and deal with Ben.
Exactly, because they actually interrupt that base, he has to just TP straight down or he's going to lose plates and he's going to lose the full wave, so he doesn't actually get to base before he goes down, and will now just have to immediately recall. Ben knows he's in a little bit of a risky spot, is just going to TP out towards top. And just swap it back. So they're just swapping their bot lane back towards bot. They're just going to keep moving this map around, trying to take advantage of the wave states. They know that Doran doesn't have his TP and hasn't based, so BLG just shoved their bot lane straight back towards bot. They're going to be able to catch that, and Doran's going to be in this awkward spot where he's going to have to base and potentially lose tempo.
Yeah, I wonder if BLG are just very concerned about, after Delight being level 7, Peanut being level 7, the dive and the threat is now very real. Elk's cleanse will be coming up relatively soon, but I guess that right now their main priority is just to prevent Elk from being attacked at all costs. And the best way to do that is to create this, well, cross-map situation where Bin is the one left isolated and Jun is the one covering in now, knowing that the potential dive is there.
Look at the bot lane, though. It's probably going to be a free play for Elk because of the movements that they've had. The delay on the base from Doran really actually cost him quite a lot because he had to TP straight from top to bot instead of basing first. He would have been able to hang around. In this case, he's not. He loses almost that entire wave and loses a plate. So Elk is just getting paid even more. Now cashes out his call, so he's going to have Shilbo on base. And BLG are playing the map really, really well. And this is one of those things that I expected Gen.G to really kind of have the edge in.
And this is one of those things that I think you guys were talking about earlier back in the draft, back at the start of the game. If you're coming into a matchup where most people are favoring your opponent, the pressure is now on you to make things more chaotic, make things more unpredictable, and make decisions that it's going to be harder for your opponents to react to. It seems like BLG made sure they did their homework.
The problem for BLG right now is that Elk did use his ultimate in the bot lane skirmish, and with the dragon spawning in, well, 2 seconds, he's not going to have that available. Of course, Doran doesn't have his ultimate available either, but by sending Chovy top, ideally for Gen.G, he's able to get closer to that level 11, has the TP to come and contest. But I don't think Gen.G need to force this fight. It's a matter of if they're concerned about, well, Zeri in the late game is only going to get harder for us to deal with. We want to be able to leverage our power spike now. But with the shield bow completed for Zeri, Gen.G may just turn back and say, you know what, we don't have the itemization to fight right now. We'll just have to concede this.
Yeah, and I think especially, you know, when you're going up against Taliyah and Maokai, if you're not first to the dragon, it's difficult to enter. You're walking through saplings, you're walking through these corridors where Taliyah is going to be just harassing you at every turn. Gen.G, though, are trying to poke and prod here, seeing if they can get into position. Here comes a TP from Chovy. It's going to be that bot lane tower.
Yep, Chovy had to TP to it. Remember, the teleport was not unleashed just yet, so he does have to still walk his way over here a little bit. Doran goes in. The dragon's going to be claimed by Shun on the side of BLG. Delight is taken low, but he gets himself back out, but it's Peanut under pressure. It's Peanut down, and Doran's not going to be able to secure a kill into Elk back. Meanwhile, Peyz goes up into the air. The feathers fly, but Gen.G has to run. Elk surfs over the wall. Zap! And he grabs a second kill plus the Drake in the fight for BLG.
Nicely done by BLG. No ultimate, no problem for Elk. He does have the sums. He's able to survive. BLG get the dragon and are able to actually win the fight as well here. Nicely done by Yagao, really making it difficult for Peanut to enter.
Oh, Ben thought he might have been able to grab the kill on Peyz, but unfortunately for him, it's close, but not enough. Gen.G get one back.
A bit of an overstep there from Bin. In the 2v1, he will lose his life, but I have to question Gen.G's contest there. It was BLG that was first the objective. You talk so much, Azael, about how it can be difficult to approach. Gen.G do find a way in. The Taliyah W is very effective, but then you can see all three just rooted up by the Maokai, and then Jun secures this objective, and now the fight is on 2 fronts. Doran and Chovy try to get onto the backline. Elk repositions. Delight's engage onto Elk is good, but the damage from Peanut isn't enough. He's able to flash away to the safety of On. They then find a solo kill, well, an isolated kill, I should say, onto Doran, as the rest of Gen.G are forced to retreat after losing their jungler. The whole exchange was just very difficult for Gen.G to play, and BLG could just leverage their mobility to play the fight in their favor.
I mean, Yagao just kind of made it a nightmare for Peanut. He couldn't even get in range to actually look for a smite. He's just getting harassed by this Taliyah the whole way. And Elk was pretty far back in that pit, so it's difficult, even with the Vi ult coming in, to be able to have any sort of follow-up. You know, Peyz is a mile away, Chovy is a mile away. They couldn't really get back in on this Zeri. And it is, again, back to live and BLG on this Herald.
I mean, the gold does look quite close. Hang on, there will definitely be a fight here. Shun.
Go in, they want to find Doran here at the very beginning. They lock him down, but they can't quite kill him just yet. BLG pop the top laner, and Gen.G are stuck in a 4v5. They got to disengage. The Herald resets, and BLG are still looking for a little bit more here. Chovy using the claw to reposition himself back into mid lane with his AD carry, with his support. Clearing out some of the waves. BLG sending Bin and Shun back to the Rift Herald pit, back to the objective. Gen.G and Peanut still hanging around. Smite available on both junglers. Chovy goes over the wall, here with a claw, looking to find his way in here. Yagao throwing out a little bit of damage. Seismic shove back onto Chovy, who already used the ult aggressively. Chovy's in danger. Elk is popping off. He's not going to grab the damage, and Peyz goes in. Elk kills him instead. AD carries traded back and forth, but Gen.G are struggling here in the fight. BLG turning it right back around. Supportal combat goes the way of On, and BLG trade 2 for 2. And get the objective.
What a scrappy fight back and forth here between Gen.G and BLG. It looked like Elk was going to get burst down, but with his dying breath takes down Peyz. Then Delight finishes him off, and then it's a 1v1 between the supports. Well, there's chaos on the other side as well between the top laner and jungler. You can see Chovy here gets flipped in. Elk just lets it rip, pops the ulti, flies forward, trying to finish him off. And then here, I thought Peyz was going to be able to actually find the kill, but he used his ulti after using his E, so he didn't actually have the cooldown there to pull the feathers through and get the initial kill. That allows Elk to finish him off, and then it's just a 1v1 battle on one side between the supports, while Bin just barely not able to finish off Chovy and Peanut, who are getting out of there with blinking health bars.
it's BLG. They're gonna fight, okay? Like, we talked about it coming into this series, and if you dare them around the objective, they are happy to play that game. And you can see how confident they are. Yagao gets a nice stun onto Doran, but Yagao underneath the turret.
This is
He's
trouble
dead.
for Yagao. Doran should pick this one up, no problem.
Oh, he missed!
Oh! No! Doran messed it up, and BLG get the kill instead. The mid laner survives. Doran's gonna want that one back, man. That was not good from the Gen.G top.
Did he think that he had flash? Was that like a flash prediction? Because that seemed like it was way off. He could have just dropped it on his feet. He's point blank. He should have had it. I mean, this was a great initial play here. He sees the aggro is pulled, times the ulti beautifully to pull him in there. Yagao going to be tanking up the turret shots. The Q to slow ensures the last turret shot does hit. And then I thought it was pretty much a guaranteed kill. It was always going to be a trade as Shun is coming in as the TP does arrive. But right here, that looks like it was so far away. To me, that feels like a flash prediction. Maybe he thought he had flash.
I mean,
I don't know.
At least it was thrown in the right general direction. Like, I mean, it's a tough one. In his defense, three members of BLG so quick to collapse. Now with the Herald, they're likely going to break up in this mid-tier 1. But BLG, I think, surprising many with a strong early game performance and dominating in the fights. They're looking for another.
Chovy gets stunned up. He can't take the claw out. The Lissandra's about to melt as BLG continue to push forward, and Chovy's the first one to die. Now the aggro shifts over onto Doran with Shun leading the charge. They bring in the wall thanks to Yagao, and Peanut is stuck on the wrong side. He'll be thrown back too. Elf grabs another. 3 dead bodies in Gen.G uniforms, and BLG put them there.
BLG never hesitate. The second that they see Chovy out of position, they ruthlessly dive on top of him, and the fight explodes. A completely uncontested Dragon as BLG is dominating in game 1.
Yeah, BLG are just going off here. They spot him on the side. The laser connects on 2, and Bin just goes straight in. The counter-strike is perfectly timed. Elk flies over the wall, and then Yagao finds the angle for the wall here to follow up. As everyone is piling in, he's going to build a wall and make them pay for it too, as he's knocking down kill after kill against Gen.G here, and they can easily retreat back to the Dragon.
And we talked about, when we looked at this game 1 draft, we saw a lot of comfort picks on the side of BLG. The fact that Yagao gets his Taliyah is something he's very proficient on. Bin on a champion that he's so well known for. You can see them just dominating across the board. Yagao's having so much presence on the map. Yeah, he made a bit of a blunder in the bot lane where he almost lost his life. In terms of the 1v1 matchup, Chovy is getting the better, but it doesn't matter because his impact overall is resulting in teamfight wins for BLG.
And it's exactly what you were talking about, Isaac. He doesn't have to be the star of the show. The man is excellent at facilitating the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Being on a pick like the Taliyah allows him to do just that. The wall cutting everybody off, being able to follow these things up, and just support guys like Elk and guys like Bin, who, by the way, as a Jax, a true melee champion, topped the damage charts in the previous fight.
I mean, he was going off, and Bin is truly a master of this champion, but the Unraveled Earth is so good against Gen.G's composition, right? You know, he's basically just using it as a follow-up. He's not even just throwing down his E randomly and trying to flick someone into it. He waits for a root from Shun, or he waits for him to engage from Bin, and then all of a sudden your Peanut or your Doran or your Delight, and the Unraveled Earth is on you as you come out of a root or a stun. You can't use your dash, or if you do, you just get stunned up again. So there's not really any way from the retreat from those situations. So I think the timing from Yagao and the coordination from BLG in these fights has been on point.
Yeah, the zone control that BLG have with their composition was something we talked about at the beginning of the draft. And when we look at these objectives as well, you were highlighting it earlier, Azael, where if Gen.G are not the first to the objective, think about what they have to walk through. Well, the saplings from Shun. You have to face check the Taliyah. What if Bin comes in from a flank? Like, there are so many things you have to be cautious of that ideally you want to be first to the objective, but now Gen.G find themselves at such a deficit, they have to walk their way through, and with their dive composition, even if they do get on top of Elk, we've seen in multiple fights, he just ease over a wall. He splits the fight up. And Gen.G, in every single fight that we've seen, have always been fighting a fight on 2 fronts. We've never seen them collectively all dive onto that target, get that execution, and then turn the fight in their favor.
I mean, it's really difficult because as soon as one target starts to dive, Maokai can just press ulti, right? And then the Unraveled Earth gets dropped as well. And it's hard for the rest of the Gen.G members to really be able to fly into that backline and follow up. And BLG are just keeping pressure around this Baron, constantly clearing out these pink wards. It feels like it's been 2 or 3 in a row dropped over the wall from Gen.G, so they're clearly very nervous about the potential start.
Yeah, it's trouble here for Gen.G. I mean, you can look at the scoreline of Doran there in the top side with the Gragas. 0-4 and 0 has not been able to contribute to any of the 5 kills the team has got so far, which sort of just tells the same story you guys are talking about. We're not seeing them go in as a unit.
Yeah.
We're not seeing this team fight function.
Absolutely, and while Peyz does just complete a second item, so that feels good temporarily, Elk is very close to his third. So I think on his next base, he's probably going to sell Cole and have a Hurricane. And then he's going to be an entire item up here over Peyz, which is absolutely problematic. When he has the Lulu in pocket, he's playing Cleanse. Lulu very well could be going towards a Mikhail second, as we've seen become very popular at this tournament, especially when you're against the Rakan as well as Chovy here on the Lissandra. There's going to be so much value from that. And there is the Hurricane. Cole sold. He's got the gold, and he's an entire item up. He's feeling great.
Man, oh man, things are troubling here for Gen.G in a series where everybody expected them to be the ones with the edge. Now they've got manpower in mid, trying to force down this tier 1 turret.
Here
but a teleport's
Bin.
coming in, and Nature's Grasp is flying out. Bin is teleported, but he's in the middle of everybody. He's trying to buy some time. He's going to be killed. Chovy's wasting the time of his opponents. It'll be a 1-for-1 trade, but Bin is worth more. I'll give the edge there in that trade to Gen.G, but where does the fight go? Elk is hasted up, still looking to see if there might be anything more to find, but it doesn't look like it. Gen.G calling the rest of this off.
Yeah, pretty interesting fight, as it was basically just 4v1 on 2 different fronts. As Chovy was looking for a flank himself, he gets collapsed on, as Bin does the same. Bin with the TP left in an isolated spot, but with Chovy gone, he does have the TP. 20 seconds though until he's alive.
They want Doran's TP. Doran showed bot, so this is why they're just going to be starting this up. They see Gen.G in the area, so they're not going to be confident for the turn here. So we'll just pull it off. I thought they would have stayed more aggressively, at least tried to get the Gragas TP.
It could be because Bin doesn't have TP.
Yeah,
they recognized the rate at which they were getting it, and then the rate at which Chovy could collapse was that bit faster. The Dragon spawns in about 10 seconds. Wouldn't be surprised to see BLG slowly move their pressure down there. They need to get someone to catch this bot wave, and it looks like Yagao will be responsible for that and force Doran back. Actually, they're just going to abandon this bot wave for now. Looks like Bin will be the one to catch it, as the rest of BLG tried to keep Gen.G away, and Gen.G will stay far away from this objective. Yeah,
this is going to be Soul Point here, though, with the Infernal Soul really strong for this BLG team. Is they have a lot of damage dealers. I mean, there's even some Maokai AP. Obviously, it's a carry top. You have carry mid, you have carry bot, right? Like, this is 4 members on their team getting a lot of value out of this. The poke is going to become incredibly annoying from these saplings and whatnot that are just so easy to apply.
And we're hitting some pretty big points here on the side of BLG. 2 fully completed items there for the Maokai. Warden's Mail coming out next. Stopwatch just now purchased for Elk's inventory. You can see one also there in Bin's inventory. Those combined with the fact that there is a Crown of the Shattered Queen that was the first item completed for Yagao, it makes target selection very difficult for the side of Gen.G.
I just like the itemization a lot more on the BLG side, the current place in the game, but also just the items that they're buying. We see Chovy going towards a Void Staff, but there's not really much of any MR purchased on the other side. We see a Morello from Doran. There's not really that much healing you have to worry about on the BLG side either. So I just think BLG, not only are they head and gold, but they have more efficient purchases.
So, Vedius, let me ask you then, what is the play here for the side of Gen.G? Is it you hope that BLG get too hypey for their own good? You hope they overstep and you go for a punish? Or
this is what you hope for.
This is it? All right. Well, Delight is running up, seeing if maybe there's something to find here, but it doesn't look like there will be. Teleport showing up. That's what they wanted. They were trying to get the TP out. They'll find it from Doran, who's now at about half HP. Baron aggro still maintained, 4,000 HP, resetting back up to about 6K. BLG still maintaining pressure on the objective. Bin jumps forward, looking at Peanut, goes into the counter-strike, now activating the stopwatch. Baron's gonna go down, and BLG got it. Chovy gets away over the wall, but he's barely got any HP left. Gen.G are running for the hills as Yagao goes forward and forces out the ulti from Peyz. BLG, look, and now flashes in. Health bars are critically low, and Peyz is critically dead. BLG are running them all down. 4 men in the dirt. Only Delight still stands, and BLG will march to the Nexus.
Who needs a Rakan when you can engage yourself on Zeri? Elk just fires himself into the middle of the team, flashes in, drops the ulti, and BLG will wipe Gen.G from the map and march on the Nexus for game number 1.
We needed to see that aggro out of BLG. We needed to see ferocity out of these guys to go head-to-head with Gen.G, and that's exactly what we got here in game number 1. They will bulldoze the base, take the first game, and lead this series.
I think defying